This is Sean Sport in podcast form.
We're going to start with the footy first. Good news, everyone. Harley Reid is back on the back page of today's paper.
Wait,
The
sorry.
Prince
Goodness.
of
Royalty.
Perth.
Yeah.
Royalty, Nathan.
Yeah.
Sean.
I mean, I thought Tony Gallardi was the Prince of Perth, so I'm very confused.
Can I say something controversial?
Please.
Would the Prince of Perth have to be born in Perth?
Well, I think so.
Because
Yeah.
Ben Cousins
Prince-
was the Prince of Perth.
Yeah, yeah.
And Ben's a WA kid,
Yep,
isn't he?
yep,
So
yep.
can someone just come over and suddenly be crowned the Prince of Perth?
Princess Mary. So she went to Denmark and was a princess.
Oh,
even
no,
though
I
she
get
wasn't
that.
did
born
it
there.
We're
time.
talking about real
Yeah.
royalty football.
Well said, Nate.
What do you think?
Well, no, I think you make a really good point.
Yeah.
And given it's only been a couple of months.
Yeah, I mean, I will give him the Duke of Dog Swamp.
That is fantastic. He worked his way up there, but come on, West, leave him alone. I mean, fair dinkum.
Like, yeah. Come on.
In today's paper too, there was a quote from Oscar Allen saying that they could be in a bit of. There's going to be a bit of hurt
It's
this
a
year.
long. It's a long. Yeah.
And
it's
can I
it's a
say that?
rebuild and it's a long season ahead.
'Cause sometimes
and now
when
they
you-
don't have a ruckman.
No, because sometimes when you see the West Australian and all Seven, their focus is so hard on Harley Reid and how good he's going to be
Yes.
or is at this current stage. You forget that he's going to play in a team that's hardly going to win a game.
Yeah.
And I'm not being rude to West Coast Eagles fans. The facts are they don't have the list to be able to contend
It's going to
regularly.
take time as
and
well.
it's
And they
going to
have
take
a
time.
lot of youngsters
They're going to be
now.
down the bottom.
Yeah.
They're going to be down the bottom.
Yeah, he's not the saviour. He's
No.
not the messiah. He's just a prince.
So knowing that as a fan of football, knowing
He's
that
gonna ride
each
it out.
game's going to be a wash,
Yeah.
It's going to be hard, man. It's
Like,
gonna be
are
really
you
hard,
really
mate.
going to be putting your day aside to watch that game, or are you going to, if you've got stuff to do in the yard, we just go do that?
Yeah, I think that's what's going to happen this year a lot with West Coast games.
Yeah,
and it
so
could
they
be
won't get that-
Freo, who knows?
They
But
won't get 55,000 of the
Yeah.
games. They'll get like 35, 40.
yeah, and then like you
People
said, Nate,
watching.
when people go, I'm going to mow the lawn, I'll come in and check the scores.
Yes.
Okay, they're still getting beaten.
Yeah.
I'll go back out, finish that, come back in.
Yeah.
And if
check
they're
it
winning,
out.
then you just watch it on replay and go, oh, that was good.
Yeah, that was really good. The other thing we'll find out today with Sam Powell-Pepper from the Port Adelaide Football Club, who laid a bump on Mark Keane from Adelaide on the weekend, and he knocked the guy out, right? So he's completely concussed. And as we know, with what happened with Angus Brayshaw and his retirement last Thursday, that this is really big news. And the AFL will probably hand out a 4-match suspension. That'll be done today. I think 4 matches, and one of those matches will be the match that he's missing this weekend.
So
in
not
fact,
an actual match.
he
Yeah.
will miss 3. That's how I view it. Of course, concussion takes centre stage in the AFL at this point in time after Angus Brayshaw had to retire due to the head injuries in his recent part of his career, particularly the semi-final, which they lost to Collingwood. I'm talking about Melbourne Football Club. At the moment, there is a class action going against the AFL. Angus, I think, is one of those people who are participating in it. There's a group of players who are suing the AFL. They want...
Because they've been sort of mediced out.
Yes, they've been
yes.
mediced out. I'm not too sure who else is involved in that, but the amount of money that they're likely to get is significant, and
Yeah.
it can really make a damage to the AFL's coffers. Nath?
Can I have a question? I've got a question because you go into that sport knowing the risks. So how much do you take that on board? Because back in the day, I remember your day, Sean.
Yeah.
The education wasn't that high.
No,
You know what I mean?
no.
So and they didn't take it as seriously. So as we go on, it gets more and more serious.
That's true.
So you going into football, you do know the ramifications of what it is going to do to your body.
Well, we probably didn't have the education to know that you would
I'm
have...
talking about these days.
Oh, you do now.
You do now.
You absolutely do now.
So where does the responsibility of making that decision for the gamble of making a very good living and setting yourself up in the future come into play?
Well,
and where does the responsibility lie just
That's
on
essentially what the court
them?
case is, isn't it?
Yes.
It's
Yeah.
that
So-
finding what that line is and how much onus is on the AFL to look
Make
after
it-
their players.
Well, it's
make
making
it
safe.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
When they've
So-
got the power to do that,
In
they should be doing
2024,
it.
this season, we're looking at, people run into people, which we've
Yes.
seen with Sam Powell-Pepper today. He'll probably get 4 weeks. Then the AFL can go in defence of them when people are coming at him. This guy gets suspended for this
Yes.
action.
Yep.
We've made it safe. In previous years, like when I was playing and any other person who's probably played in that area that's had concussion and or had some mental health issues that could be linked to it. They don't know at this point in time, but some of it's been linked along the way.
There's definitely
Shane
links
Tuck is one of them.
to depression. Yeah.
That they will be able to say, hey, when I was playing, you didn't make it that safe, so you're going to have to you have to pay out.
But there's going to be a point where it's made as safe as possible. Right,
and it won't, Nathan. It won't look like AFL football in 2024.
Yeah, but that's where it's going to go.
Yeah.
It's going to go to a point where it's safe as they possibly can,
Yes.
and then
Because
in
they
that
can't afford these
scenario,
lawsuits,
then that scenario when someone goes into it, they have to fully. It's a risk they take on their own bodies.
Yeah, no
because
question.
they know they're educated. They know what can happen with them.
Yeah,
it's no secret.
In the meantime, in the previous however many years, then the AFL are looking at shelling out some serious money,
Yes.
Yeah.
and this
But
could have
surely
some
they're
massive
insured
effects to the
against this,
competition.
Sean. So it's not that out of the AFL cover. Surely they've got insurance.
Well, I
against
don't
this.
know how much that when this would have come into play. There would have been a liability thing that they would have had.
They have
at some
liability
stage.
insurance, so
And
surely
did
that covers it.
Did that cover it at the time? I
You
don't know.
would think so.
But does it also come back to then individuals going clubs for not protecting them, and how much are they then protected?
I mean, that would be an interview case by case situation. You would think, like if their club is forcing them to go back ahead of time, when they clearly were still suffering from head injuries before their concussion protocols were brought in, then you go, yeah, maybe there is a case for that.
I'd have
And
to
the
say there'd be a
lawyers are gonna
lot.
be the winner out of
there'd
it.
be a
Yeah.
lot to say about that. But when you then break it down to AFL clubs, the West Coast Eagles are said to have $20 million in the bank, which they denied at the time. But let's say that that's a real figure.
Yeah.
If there was lawsuits coming at any of the other teams. $3-4 million here and there, their whole thing could be gone.
I know, but once
Yeah.
again, they have public liability insurance. These clubs aren't uninsured.
Yeah, I'm led to believe that that'd have an impact. That kind of money would have an impact. And I'm not 100% sure with that. Be able to defend every one of those, Mats. But yeah. It's going to be a big deal anyway. This is Patrick Dangerfield, who's the president of the AFL Players Association.
That's going to be a tough one to navigate over the next little while, I think, because players want to play, they want to compete. Sometimes you need to save them from themselves, but there is an accountability to it at league headquarters as well.
The game's going to change forever from here on
Of course
in.
it's going to be. I mean, anyone that watches this game of AFL from any other country turns around and goes, "Oh my God, that is that is crazy that you guys do what you do during that game
no
without
protection."
protection." So the rest of the world, just by looking at it, can see how dangerous it is.
Yeah, the interesting
So
thing
the
for
only
me,
way to
Nath,
move forward, Sean, is to make it as safe as houses, which in turn won't be AFL.
and then what will people say in the stands? Oh, this is not what we play.
The game's always been evolving.
It
So
has.
the game now doesn't look like it did 20 years ago anyway.
No,
so
you can't
it's
just walk up to someone and hit him in the head, which used
further
to be
evolution.
Well, I mean, on that, Brayshaw. So
Angus.
was he the one that was hit in the head?
Yeah, by Braden Maynard, who was able to play in the grand final. There was a lot happening in that space. But remember they changed the rules only recently, but they knew something was coming. But he can't go on as a 28-year-old and just play contact sport anymore.
No, that's it. He can't even go and have a...
He's in a dangerous situation, isn't
Yeah,
he?
definitely.
It's similar to, Daniel Venables is another one. Brad Shepherd's another
Brad
one.
Shepherd,
yeah, exactly. That should have still been playing and aren't.
Yeah,
and
most
you go,
definitely.
they should be compensated for that.
They should.
Sean Sport is a Nova podcast. For more great comedy shows like this, head to novapodcast.com.au.